Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Caitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. So we are continuing with Sri Caitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila, chapter number 4. Can everyone please mute themselves? Thank you. Text number 234. ए सब सिद्धांत है आमरेर पल्लव भक्त गण कोकिलेर सर्वदावल्लभ. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. All these conclusions are like the newly grown twigs of a mango tree. They are always pleasing to the devotees who, in this way, resemble birds. Text number 235. Abhakta usrera ithe nahaya pravesha tabe chitte haya mora ananda vishesha. Translation. The camel-like non-devotees cannot enter into these topics. Therefore, there is special jubilation in my heart. Text 236. Ye lagi kahite bhaya ye seya dina jane ihava ikiba sukha ache tribhuvane. Translation. For fear of them, I do not wish to speak. But if they do not understand, then what can be happier in all three worlds? Text 237. Ataiva bhakta gane kari namaskara nihashanki kahyetara hauka chamatkara. Translation. Therefore, after offering obeisances to the devotees, for their satisfaction, I shall speak without hesitating. Text 238. Krishna vichara eka antare antare Purnananda Purnarasa Rupa kahe more. Translation. Once Lord Krishna considered within his heart, everyone says that I am complete bliss, full of all rasas. Text 239. Ama haite anandita haya tribhuvana ama ke ananda dibe aiche kunajana. All the world derives pleasure from me. Is there anyone who can give me pleasure? Excuse me. Text 240. Ama haite yara haya shata shata guna sejana ahladite pare mora mana. One who has 100 times more qualities than me could give pleasure to my mind. Text 241. Excuse me. Ama haite guni bada jagati sambhava akali radhate taha kari anubhava. One more qualified than me is impossible to find in the world. But in Radha alone, I feel the presence of one who can give me pleasure. Text 242 and 243. Koti kama jani rupa yadyapi amara asamordhva madhurya samya nahiyara mora rupe apyayita haya tribhuvana radhara darshane mora judayanayana. Although my beauty defeats the beauty of 10 million cupids, although it is unequaled and unsurpassed, and although it gives pleasure to the three worlds, seeing Radharani gives pleasure to my eyes. 244. Mora vamsi gite akarshaye tribhuvana radhara vachane hare amara shravana. The vibration of my transcendental flute attracts the three worlds, but my ears are enchanted by the sweet words of Srimati Radharani. 245. Yadyapi amara gandhe jagat sugandha mora chitta prana hare radha anga gandha. Although my body lends fragrance to the entire creation, the scent of Radharani's limbs captivates my mind and heart. 246. Yadyapi amara rase jagat sarasa radhara adhara rasa ama kare vasha. Although the entire creation is full of different tastes, because of me, I am charmed by the nectarian taste of the lips of Srimati Radharani. 247. Yadyapi amara sparsha kotindu sitala radhikara sparshe ama kare sushitala. And although my touch is cooler than 10 million moons, I am refreshed by the touch of Srimati Radhika. 248. Eimata jagatira sukhe ami hetu radhikara rupa guna amara jvatu jivatu. Thus, although I am the source of happiness for the entire world, the beauty and attributes of Sri Radhika are my life and soul. 249. Eimata anubhava amara pratita vichari dekhiye yadi sabha viparita. In this way, my affectionate feelings for Srimati Radharani may be understood, but on analysis, I find them contradictory. Radhara darshane mora judaya nayana amara darshane radha sukhe ageyana. My eyes are fully satisfied when I look upon Srimati Radharani, but by looking upon me, she becomes even more advanced in satisfaction. 251. Paraspara Venugite Hare Chetana Mora Brahme Tamalere Kare Alingana. The flute-like murmur of the bamboos rubbing against one another steals Radharani's consciousness, for she thinks it to be the sound of my flute, and she embraces a tamala tree, mistaking it for me. 252. Krishna Alingana Painu Janama Safale Krishna Sukhi Magna Rahe Vriksha Karikole. I have gotten the embrace of Sri Krishna, she thinks. So now my life is fulfilled. Thus she remains immersed in pleasing Krishna, taking the tree in her arms. 253. Anukula vati yadi paya mora gandha udiya panite chahe preme haya andha. When a favorable breeze carries to her the fragrance of my body, she is blinded by love and tries to fly into that breeze. 254. Tambula charavita yave kare aswadane ananda samudre dube kichui na jane. When she tastes the beetle chewed by me, she merges in an ocean of joy and forgets everything else. Last verse for today, 255. Amara Sangame Radha Pai Ye Ananda Shatamukhe Balita Buna Pai Taranta. Even with hundreds of mouths, I could not express the transcendental pleasure she derives from my association. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmanitamena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So we can see so many beautiful verses, of course, beyond our conception, beyond my ability to explain it, but just hearing about this conversation of Krishna talking about Srimati Radharani is pleasurable. It's so blissful just to hear Krishna speak like this about Radharani. And Caitanya Mahaprabhu, he is desiring to understand these glories of Radharani's love. That's the reason he appeared 500 years ago, so that he could relish the pleasure that Srimati Radharani gets just by loving Krishna. So he wants to experience her sweetness of his love. Now, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in these verses, he is, before today's first verse that we read, before that in the previous class we saw, where he says that anyone who captures Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda in their heart, they become blissful. So if we are not experiencing bliss, if we are not blissful, then one of the reasons is because we have not captured Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda in our hearts. And he also explains that Lord's pastimes are very pleasing to the devotees. And he compares the non-devotees to camels who cannot understand these topics. And I remember Srila Prabhupada talks about camels, and he gives the example that the camel is actually chewing on the thorns, and because of those thorns, his tongue is bleeding, and he's tasting his own blood, and he finds it relishable. So that is a height of ignorance. So he's comparing the non-devotees who are like camels who cannot understand. Why? Because they are tasting their own blood and enjoying it. And they are so much into sense gratification. And he says, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that even though they they won't understand. There's a big difference, cannot and won't. Cannot understand means they're dumb, don't have much intelligence, but they won't understand means they make that choice of not understanding Krishna Katha. So he says that even though non-devotees won't understand, I will still speak about pastimes of Krishna. Only that can bring happiness in life. Why did Srila Prabhupada stress on, hearing Bhagavatam every morning, hearing Bhagavad Gita in the evenings? Because these are about Krishna Katha, talking about the pastimes of Krishna. And that is what can bring happiness in our lives. So if happiness is missing, then it's important to understand that we need to read Srila Prabhupada's books every day, read Krishna Katha every day. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he first wants to offer obeisances to the devotees. Very, very important. It's not just we offer obeisances physically. Yes, that's important, but also mentally. If we see a devotee far away, cannot approach them and physically offer obeisances, at least mentally we can offer our obeisances to the devotee. Because devotees are very dear to Krishna and it's very pleasing to him. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, he wants to speak for the satisfaction of devotees. Isn't that wonderful? Why so much talk about devotees, devotees, devotees? Because devotees are our life and soul. Association of devotees is very, very precious. So anything that is precious, we handle with care. Similarly, devotee association should be handled with care. Be very careful that we do not criticize any devotee, not even in our minds. Oh, this one said that, this one did that, and this and that. No, we should stop our mind right then and there that no, that is detrimental to our spiritual lives. Our spiritual life will get affected if we blaspheme, even if we, are casually talking about it. That can affect our spiritual lives. So we have to be very, very vigilant and alert all the time. Just like the soldiers, they are very alert when they are on duty because they don't know from where, they can be shot, or the enemies where they are or where they can attack them. Similarly, we got to be vigilant with our spiritual lives also. So we see here that Krishna, he's thinking. What is he thinking? He's thinking that everyone says, I am complete bliss. I am full of all the rasas and, all are trying to derive pleasure from me. But is there anyone who can give me pleasure? Krishna wants pleasure. And that is why his pleasure potency is there to give him pleasure, and that is Srimati Radharani, Hiladani Shakti. So he wants to know, is there anyone who can give me pleasure? It's not that he doesn't know. It is for us to understand. And he says one with 100 times more qualities can give pleasure, someone more qualified than me, someone more qualified than Krishna. But Krishna knows it is only Radharani who can give me maximum pleasure. He says, he's thinking about all this for our benefit so that we can understand the position of Srimati Radharani, so that we can understand the transcendental relationship between Radha and Krishna. I know these topics are beyond our conception, beyond explanation, beyond understanding, but at least theoretically we can hear about this. Even though Krishna is most beautiful, Radharani is one who gives pleasure to Krishna's eyes. So just see the topmost transcendental position of Srimati Radharani. She's a topmost devotee of Krishna, one who gives full pleasure to Krishna. And Krishna says the flute attracts everybody. But Krishna is attracted by words of Srimati Radharani because her words are so sweet. When I was reading this verse, which said that Radharani's words are so sweet, I was thinking about the 25 transcendental qualities of Srimati Radharani. We actually try to read this on Radha Ashtami, but it's important to read these and meditate on these over and over and over again. Because Krishna, he finds Srimati Radharani the topmost, the one who gives him the most pleasure, and her words are so sweet. And I was reading these 25 transcendental qualities of Srimati Radharani, and the first one is, she is sweetness personified. No one can be more sweet than she is. She is a fresh young girl. Her eyes are always moving. She's always brightly smiling. She possesses all auspicious marks on her body. She can agitate Krishna by the flavor of her person. She's expert in the art of singing. She can speak very nicely and sweetly, just exactly what Krishna is talking about. Sweet words. And this is what we learned in Bhagavad Gita also, austerity of speech. Austerity of speech means, first of all, we have to be honest. But at the same time, we have to speak so sweetly that we do not agitate the minds of others. You see? So that is, and of course, reciting the Vedic scriptures, chanting, these are all austerities of the speech. So she can speak very nicely and sweetly. She's expert in presenting feminine attractions. She's modest and gentle. She's always very merciful. She is transcendently cunning. She knows how to dress nicely. She's always shy. She's always respectful. She's always patient. She's very grave. She's enjoyed by Krishna. She is situated on the highest devotional platform. She is the abode of love of the residents of Gokul. She can give shelter to all kinds of devotees. She is more merciful than Krishna. So if we want to please Krishna, then if we please Srimati Radharani, then automatically Krishna is pleased. She's always affectionate to superiors and inferiors. She's always obliged by the dealings of her associates. She's the greatest amongst Krishna's girlfriends. And finally, she always keeps Krishna under her control. This is what Srila Prabhupada said. If somehow or the other we can surrender to Krishna completely, Krishna is sold to us, which means he comes under our control. Then we can tell him, Krishna dance, Krishna play the flute, because it's a very high level, very, very high level of bhakti. So you see, here Krishna, he's thinking and he He, of course, knows, but for our benefit, he's giving us indication about how glorious is Srimati Radharani. He says that his body lends fragrance to the entire creation, but Radharani's scent that comes from her body captivates Krishna's mind and heart. So very beautiful. And Krishna feels refreshed by Radharani's touch. So all these topics that we are covering today also are very high level. I know it's beyond at least my conception, but we can get inspired and motivated just by hearing the glorious position of Srimati Radharani. Appreciate her beauty, appreciate her transcendental qualities. Won't it be nice to meditate on her 25 transcendental qualities as often as possible? That can help us even progress spiritually. Now, Krishna is thinking that I'm the source of happiness in the world, but Radharani's beauty and her attributes are his life and soul. He's fully satisfied by looking at Srimati Radharani. It makes a huge difference when we, especially when chanting, if we can be completely present in chanting, which means we are attentive while chanting. And I found a very transcendental way to focus on my chanting. There was actually a lecture given by Balabhadra Prabhu a few days ago on Harrisburg, ISKCON Harrisburg Zoom call. And he, during his class, he showed a beautiful Caitanya Mahaprabhu holding Lord Jagannath. And I was totally captivated by that. So during question answer session, I asked him, I would like to ask you a question. Please give me an answer in yes or no. Based on your answer, I'll ask you the next question. So he said, sure. And I asked, is it okay to have spiritual desires? He said, yes. I said, okay, my next question is, can I please have your Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? And he said, yes. And here he is. You see Chaitanya Mahaprabhu holding Lord Jagannath in his right hand. So very beautiful, see. Holding Lord Jagannath in his right hand. And this is so meditative. Just sit next to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Jagannath and chant rounds early in the morning. So very beautiful. You see, we have to find ways to get attracted to the holy name. We have to find ways, because even recently there was this message, I think it was on July 29th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, no, 22nd July. Guru Maharaj's instruction, he says that, do I need the best doctor, hospital, or medicine to return to a healthy life? No, I need a disciple to glorify Krishna more by chanting your rounds attentively. These are his instructions on 22nd July. He makes it very clear. He says, please take my request seriously. Every lecture we see, he talks about attentive chanting. Not that we have to finish our rounds today. No, attentive chanting, because when we concentrate on attentive chanting, then that will give us satisfaction. That will give satisfaction to the spiritual master and ultimately to Radha and Krishna. So Krishna here, he's saying he's fully satisfied looking at Srimati Radharani, but she gets more satisfaction by looking at him. What a nice exchange. And Radharani, I mean, she is totally absorbed in Krishna Prema. Sometimes, like we read, she will embrace the tamal tree thinking that is Krishna. You see? Her goal is Krishna Prema. Her goal is to satisfy Krishna. And when that happens, she feels her life is fulfilled. And she merges into that, ocean of joy and happiness. There's a beautiful verse where it says, Krishna says that when Radharani, she tastes the beetle that is chewed by him, she goes into ecstasy. That itself shows the power of Krishna Prasadam. So very powerful. Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna Prasadam is so potent, so powerful, that it purifies not only our body, our mind, our senses, but also the finer brain tissues that help us to sharpen our intelligence and understand Krishna consciousness. So it's important that we do not eat anything that is not offered to Krishna, and also at least mentally honor the prasadam before we eat it. And today's last verse that we read, it says, even with hundreds of mouths, I could not express the transcendental pleasure she derives from my association. Krishna is saying that Radharani is deriving more pleasure from me. So now I want to experience that. I want to see what does it feel like to get all that ecstasy and that transcendental pleasure. It's not easy to understand these topics, these thoughts of Krishna, the glories of Srimati Radharani. But Srila Prabhupada says we can understand only when we get the mercy of Guru and Krishna. And we can get their mercy only when we follow their instructions nicely, seriously, sincerely. To be able to follow their instructions, we should know what are they. They are very simple. Chant attentively, read Srila Prabhupada's books, eat only Krishna Prasadam, follow 4 regulators, principles very strictly, preach, serve in the temple. Very simple instructions. It's not rocket science at all. So it's not easy to understand Radharani's position, her feelings, her emotions, her supreme love for Krishna, that she only wants association of. It's very difficult to understand. But if we want to, then we will require the mercy of Lord Krishna himself. And if we hold on to the instructions of the spiritual master, that will be so pleasing to Radha and Krishna. Then it'll become easy to attain spiritual perfection. These topics are very, very high level. I don't know how many more verses are there on these topics of Radha and Krishna's love. But it's so nice to, it's not only nice, but it is educating us. Srila Prabhupada so beautifully has translated and many places given purports so that we can understand. But the bottom line of all these verses is attentive chanting. At least we can, if I'm talking about myself, if I am not able to chant attentively, at least I can make that effort, sincere effort that yes, today I am going to try harder to chant attentively. So these are these beautiful verses of today. I'm going to end here at verse number 255. If anyone has any questions, you are welcome to ask.